I know a lot of people here, but I don't know everyone. And I'm gonna share some updates from the Reality Clowns project. And I will say that I'm gonna talk really slow and low for a while because it's the only way I know how to share this information. I'm very inspired by certain people. One's named Andrew III. If anyone has seen Andrew III around Ypsilanti lately, let me know. If you're not familiar, Andrew III is like a really incredible poet and visual artist who got all of his poems stolen off of an onion truck. He used to drive a pickup truck full of onions. And I just remember he read at Totally Awesome Fest. Me and Amber booked him like several years ago, and he read so slow, it was like water, almost to the point where the words didn't matter. It became kind of textural. I'm aiming for that, so sometimes let it be sonorous, sometimes take in the words, because there's nothing as heavy as Reality Clowns. It's a really deeply serious and hilarious topic. And then I'm also inspired by Cindy Crabb, who Katie Clark introduced me to a long time ago, because Cindy Crabb made a zine called Doris, in which she shared like a lot of secrets. And I really always aim to share secrets, but there are extreme limitations with language in which every way that we derive care on the individual, on the institutional basis, demands us to be full of secrets. So a lot of this addresses that. People have been asking me, oh yeah. The other thing is that I'm thinking about my friend Chu Lu Ding, who is my friend. We relate on the idea that we were put on Earth to have gray area experiences. And, both identify as sort of, kind of boring gonzo journalists. Chu writes under a moniker named Adonis Male Cumshot, who's a detective who works for no one in particular. I also want to shout out this person named Vegan Peace Punk. He is a poet who goes up and down California, and I'm going to try to sort of channel him for a second too. Yeah, so I'm just going to tell some stories and chat, read some poems, and talk about the Reality Clowns project. This is a poem called Aging Rocker. Aging rocker. She has to take care of herself. There aren't enough numbers in front of her bank account to deal with cancer. A stern person who is closetedly wistful has been holding it down, minding that thing called security during the rocker's draining drift. Hide in my quiet house, aging rocker, she says. No need to stay connected to precarity. I will rock you now. Last night, a band I'm in called the Platonic Boyfriends played. I feel so lucky to play with Norton Sewer. It's like one of the greatest pleasures in my fucking life. We had a new song called Liberation via Marriage. That was based off of this poem. So this is the greater poem, which is a little different. So I just felt like it'd be topical to read it for the usage of your lore. I know you're mythologizing and writing a very active history of what's going on around you. Because everything is like kind of a story in a story. We're like developing a sediment. History's misremembered, and usually its greatest agents are dead and have no names. Like, legacy has like almost an inverse correlation with action and in the 100 to 300 year scale, and it's very terrifying, right? Like worms pay our rent basically. And Liberation via Marriage. Share more by sharing less. A country called Valania. A boyfriend from the imperial capital. We like the counter of this restaurant. He tells me how he's been doing. An immigrant dies every time I dream, he said. Are you sure? I remember when we were separate, and now I don't know what it'd be like to not have known his touch or his beautiful mind. But I don't remember a time before. Every photograph is a way of cutting a timeline and letting the past fall away like a ribbon. I don't like any words that describe me, he says. I would like to go see a live musician. A dance musician? That is what I would like. No, he said. I would like to see a classic musician. A rock man who knows his way around the blues. What would you like to see? I think you need to see a psychoanalyst, considering how much you like breaking rules. Rock is dangerous for you, but you still do it. We aren't just rockers now, he said. We're recording a movie. We have a good person to do male narration. I just can't put anything risky in it. I know, I said. Listen, I think there should be a scene where men give head in your movie. Like specifically sucking dick. Like a lung dream catcher scene. And I want there to be a character named Candle. No, not that, he said. Accelerationism. Group manifest suicide. I want to address that. Be it. Let me hear God's menu music. The promise of grids of 12 squares and magic in the hyper-reality. I sigh. This happens with everyone I date. The main mechanic of history is that when someone dies, they're specifically unremembered. It complicates my goal of being the richest girl in the graveyard. I have like 120 pages, I'm just jumping around. Okay. Climate safe retirement plan. Saving up for a house that is safe from the climate. I will survive, yeah, it's my kind of retirement. Where will they go? I don't fucking know. Deep in the ground, it girls are found, everyone else drowned. Gym memberships, rich as fuck. Like on a house, how there's a tree with the shadow, drawn to things that interrupt western light. The shadows can't scare us anymore. When we're sad, there's so much music to be made. Watching a medication kill a friend's muse. No sex, no judgment. Okay, that's some poem. So yeah, the Reality Clowns project, people have been out wondering how to get recruited to Reality Clowns, because if you tell people there's a cult, they're usually in some kind of state where they're not able to engage their senses as much as they would like. I relate to this, and I offer the Reality Clowns lifestyle. Yeah, so all year I've been kind of spreading it, but it's hard to spread, membership to a cult that has no rules or no hierarchy or no registry or anything. It's just a set of principles that you can elect anytime you choose. But I did have one really specific membership recruitment experience this year. So I was working in Florida. I had this really strange opportunity to work in Florida that was extremely confusing, and I was strongly considering spending a lot of time there this year. So I was there and I felt very weird there. I wasn't experiencing many acts of sort of pedestrian faith because it's a globalist place where people are trying to integrate with kind of a sexy Christianity. It's a kind of global South Christian blender in Miami, and it's kind of fucking terrifying. It's kind of like they're in a simulation. You'll hear multiple people say the exact same phrase about working hard and playing hard, and there's a club called Factory Town, and there's a club called Space, and it's just there's I love trance music so much, but Miami really showed me how fascistic trance music can feel. There's trance remixes of songs that are already trance songs. There was a Share Believe remix. There was a trance remix of Harvest Moon, and you're walking around. There's kind of this really insanely synchronized choreography. Everyone's at the club. There's one laser. There's one arm. It was really just surreal. This is a long circle to where we're going, but I was there and I was trying to sort of ascertain if I could experience safety in Florida, or if I could experience community on some level. And so I was doing what anyone would do, and I was on like dating apps, just like how are you gonna leave to a bunch of other trans people? And so I went on like a bunch of dates, and like, you know, everyone was cool. I thought everyone was kind of corny, honestly, like wonderful people and everything, but like you know, so I was going on these dates and I was like, and most people are moving out of Miami, like they're moving to Pittsburgh, where I grew up, which was like very surreal. They're like, yes, Pittsburgh, the Mecca, the autist trans Mecca, like let's go, like let's fucking fuck, like wow. And like then there's people going to South Carolina and Los Angeles. But yeah, I went on a date with this person where I was just really feral. The people I was working for, I felt like severely misunderstood by, or like kind of just like I would just like say yes to them about things but not really speak on myself. You know, I just felt kind of like pent up a lot there, which got me into a lot of different situations, which I can't really describe all of. Everything's a story in a story. But, you know, yeah, I ended up going on a date with this 50-year-old like telemarketer. And yeah, it was like really cool. She offered to take me out and pay for my meal. I was like really happy about it. And it was one of those things where like I kind of rizzed her out, where like there's sometimes this experience, I don't know if you've ever had this or like what your Riz does, but I don't know if you ever had the experience where you're getting to know someone and they start mirroring your behavior, like 100%. They start trying to say the same things as you, or like kind of just, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I was having this with her in a way that I found kind of disappointing, because I do like differentiation. Sometimes, you know, like just like we're different, like it's cool. So she was kind of like spilling into me in this weird way, and I sort of felt like I was working on some level on the date, and she was paying for everything, and like I just didn't want to meet people. So like I went back to her house and I had told her about the Reality Clowns project. And she was like, I really want to join, like how do I become a member? I was like, that's really up to you. Like I really can't like give you the guide on how to become a reality clown. It might be like more of a process. Like, and she was like really fixated on it, and also was wanting to have sex. And like I was super feral, and I most scenarios would not have really wanted to do that. But I was just like kind of gonna do it no matter what. It was my vibe on the date. Like I didn't like. And so, like, and also it's like that dynamic where like someone's sort of dominant towards you, but they're really like corny, like. And so we're like setting up for what we're doing, and yeah, she's like trying to like join my cult. Well, I'm just basically like inanimate, like at her house, which was like fine for me. And then like, yes, like before we did anything, I did like kind of initiate her in that I said, if you would really want to be a reality clown, before we have sex, you have to like say and really mean it, that you are addicted to reality. And she did. And I didn't really believe her. Cause like, yeah, it just like wasn't based like in like a general way. And I left like a few minutes after and went home and felt like there was something wrong with my biome. Okay, this is another story. This is a written one, not a just spoken one, written and spoken. This is called Generative Adversarial Network Consciousness. It's one of the reality clown networks. It addresses generative adversarial network consciousness in both the macro and micro dimensions. You don't know what those words mean yet. I don't want to riz you out with the length of these words. So the story will get you better at them, and we'll all be okay. Are you a nerd? What is a nerd? Like an artist, a nerd might be someone who is obsessed with an object or idea beyond its function, futzing with it until it becomes legitimate or functional in its own right, granting this object that was once useless purpose in the scheme of power possessed by the nerd and nerds who in spite of beauty are granted power over things, their reward for being interested in a sort of power. Like a real journalist, I always take my fears into the field, looking for the justifications. One night, Jalen, Chu, and I want to go to a diner. The closest one is 50s themed, and having just smoked a blunt, we see no particular issue. It's still a diner. We get there. They seem to be having a good time, but the Catalina Island subjugated racial harmony vibe starts to scare me. Ukuleles on the ceiling, family comfort. The blueberry pie is auspiciously blue. I sneak to the bathroom where there are reviews that are mad at them for only boiling but not grilling hot dogs taped to the wall. I agree, they should definitely grill them, but they are proud of the fact that their food is prepared like real 1950s food. In the year group pictures of the employees, there's a waitress whose expression says everything. Her body language to the rest of the group. This is one of those jobs where you have to smile. Needless to say, everything I ate began to have a strange resonance in my mouth. After dropping Jalen off, I pulled to a gas station with Chu and found what I needed to rinse the 50s out of me. Nerds gummy clusters. We laughed and laughed. What a funny treat. Once it was posted to my Instagram story, I found out that 20 plus friends of mine have strongly good feelings about Nerds gummy clusters. It's been a gem among women. This makes me only love it more, becoming one of those lanes of indulgence that connects me to our lonely star, our millennial semi-dignities, private thoughts at night. Nerds again. What's this one? These are like unique dinosaurs that we eat. Something about Stone Age, something about genitalialessness. I started telling Peter about it and we got both flavors, blue and pink, boy code, girl code. Like Nerds rope without all the hassles, crispy on the outside, gummy on the inside. The mouthfeel is some kind of metaphor. We're only so crusty, only so soft, like rhinestones. The limits of these things are comfortable, so forever new, being rainbow. I'm afraid that most of my spaciness can be attributed to the fantasy of hyperconnection, something like crunching on these soft things, some world where we're all taken care of and taking care of each other. It's a good idea, and it causes me to investigate many different kinds of caring roles, usually at the expense of only serving one or two or three. Like with music, I don't claim to play an instrument. I indicate that I love engaging with the whole thing, listening, humming melodies, recording, any instrument, drawing out personalities. And then I'm having one of those days where I want to kill myself instead of doing anything else. I'm having the feeling of being unsatisfying, less a portal to light than ever. This is recurring for me, but I just was feeling especially useless, wanting to pick a lane I never choose. And then I'm just curious, almost open to any plan. I work for a violent man and I work for a violent woman. I ended up around so many things involving guns, by people with more fixed aesthetic and tough dispositions than I have. Once for a director and once for an industrial musician. I witnessed and attended to 3 on-set injuries in 1 month. All the most baby-faced and cutest kid, young transbian, little baby-faced boy. I attempted to do that heel for when blood is trapped behind a toenail on the cutest 20-year-old, lighting a paperclip on a stove and attempting to burn a hole in her nail while having coffee jitters. I bought her a Monster earlier too,
It's
so we were
currently
just tripping in
4:20
whatever
p.m.
way.
with a current
I'm glad I was
temperature of
there in any
77
case.
degrees Fahrenheit.
And when
Today's
the
low is
injuries treated
59
and I
degrees,
stopped seeing them,
and the
I
high
look
is
at the ceiling
77
and wonder
degrees.
about whoever I saw
Looks
just
like
get
it'll
hurt.
be a cloudy
It's
day.
a reminder that I'm
And
actually
now,
human.
here are today's top headlines
I restart
provided by
every morning,
Google.
every second, every
Saltwater
day,
in the
but
Mississippi
ultimately,
threatens
I've
water
come a long
supply in
way.
New Orleans, the New York
Cooking for
Times.
people, sleeping on their couches and
Full
shoulders.
transcript of Face the
But then
Nation,
also that
September
thing that came under
24th,
as the violent
2023
italics
Yahoo
around me
News.
made me want to give more and more
Democratic
care.
senators reluctant
I
to
had
join
developed a
calls for
sexual
Bob
fetish for
Menendez's
guns.
resignation, NBC
I imagine
News.
being fucked by a gun,
North
sucking a
Carolina
gun,
couple gets
fucking with a
married
gun.
hours after tropical
I
storm
never really
Ophelia
liked
makes
guns,
landfall
but it just felt like
WC-12
reality was
Winston-Salem.
coming for me on some deep level.
41-year-old
I only
woman
told
found
Chu
dead
about
after
this sort
Florida
of loudly in
alligator is
public.
spotted with a...
These symbols of my dreams and desires, are they my own? And the day after I treated the injury, I got a big tattoo in my ribcage from someone who I just told to do whatever they want. I was able to go into subspace really effectively, and beyond a language barrier asked if he minded. He just used a 2-pronged needle and not a gun, so it took a long, long time. My whole consciousness became the light off of one of my eyelashes as metal went into me over and over again. 9 hours underneath my skin. So that was the generative adversarial network story. I should probably give some warnings. This might be too late though. Just to say, like, yeah, like 2021, 2022, I was wondering how we could express our secrets. Because I just felt like I had so many. These feel semi-secretive as in I'm like omitting characters and institutions and like contracts and things. And like, it's really weird. I don't know, I just feel like I'm constantly building up secrets. Like, and I don't want them. Should I keep going? I don't know. Like, are we on like the level?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, because we can just jump around. There's some different styles we could do. Like, I'm basically saying the same thing over and over again in different ways. These are the reality clowns updates. Mostly things that I've just witnessed and experiences of initiation. Because I've been forced to be addicted to reality, actually. Do people want to hear more poems or more stories?
Yeah.
Stories? Okay. This is heavy one, y'all. We cool with it? We cool?
Yeah.
There might be some funny moments, but it's heavy. Again, like macro level heavy. We're not going to describe like the nitty gritty with it, but we're going to get like at like the gestures. This is about the period of time in which I realized that the reality clown's lifestyle was necessary. Because when you're in a state of atomization, you don't really realize what's you and what's everything else. I'll probably get more into that here, but this is about like thawing a period of extreme atomization that I was in 2022. It took me a long time to forgive myself for failing the marriage that my ex was trying to build. Following that, my life turned into a broken choreography. Debt from a credit card I took out towards our moves, my own debt from getting laid off of a project soon after, and an isolation that I self-imposed surrounding transition, blurred to create a prefigurative rejection from everyone and everywhere I've ever known. The following several months are pieced together of gig work, arguing constantly for Social Security, shooting black market hormones, falling into a classic work locale related to my identity, feeling like a failure, recording depressing music, crying constantly, thinking my ex was like a deity, always correct, and that the largest crime was mine, not knowing what I want. In spite of my shame, I began at some point to organize with the tenants union, and saw a speech a boy gave where he instructed everyone to clap with one finger. He said, "This is you talking to yourself. Clap with 2 fingers. This is the sound of talking to one other person. Clap with 3 fingers. This is the sound of talking to your whole building. Clap with 4 fingers. This is the sound of buildings talking to each other. And clap with your whole hand." And there's like this whole like psychosomatic thing where like it really built up into like a stampeding sound. And it really felt like the next world he was describing, it sounded like human rain and like an inevitable stampede of care. Like to hear the room just like light up like that. And I was at this conference, and the next day at the same conference, speaker residents were speaking on the topic of deserving. How society made them feel like they did not deserve a house or to be clean. When the city of Los Angeles gave housing to select houseless residents via Project Roomkey, many thought that their lives were going to become easier, but it was not the case. There were many rules regarding their ability to gather. They also had a curfew and were denied phone and internet. When tenants figure out how to use the wired phone system in the occupied hotels to speak to each other, the nonprofit managing the hotel cut the cords and disconnected the phones. Nonprofits saw the gathering of the now housed to create threats to their power. And so while they as individuals had acquired a room, they lost access to their greater need, which was to gather. This trade-off between being housed and socially isolated or houseless in community drove many residents to suicide. No news outlet has called it that, but it's true. Several returned to the streets willingly to be with others, giving up this itemized desire for a room. Something really clicked for me hearing that. The next day on a lunch break, I was walking down the streets in Santa Monica near my office park where I was working. The houses were definitely expensive, but I'd really seen no display of joy in 4 months of being near those streets. People that live in these houses are mostly white collar and realtor class and seem angry at inanimate objects. Maybe they have a rich inner life regarding fitness, neutral interior design, or bourbon. I also might not be projecting when I say that some of these realtor class people have basement dungeons where they imagine having sex in an uncolonized wild. No matter what their outlook is, they too seem miserable in the cult of professionalism, except for that they celebrate their privacy and alienation. Even though they are rich enough to start, say, a queer commune, they have chosen to isolate themselves as well. I felt like Kyle MacLachlan at the end of Twin Peaks Season 3. I cried and I screamed in an ugly way that had no direction while walking down a street that no one was out on. I didn't have a lot of context for. Why are we like this, though? Why does alienation spread, and for whose pleasure? Every day, in new ways, I learned that a resource that is hoarded would obviously be wielded lovingly by a collectivized world. We have everything we need, but we give our lives away to simulate the will towards privacy and atomization of relationships. I'm so pissed about it. Every time I meet someone, they kind of become part of me, and all these parts are always drifting further apart. Sometime in 2022, last year, a helpful thought came into my head. The fact that I feel isolated isn't my fault. There's actually just such a high level of harm present that causes people to toil, attempt to hoard resources, identify with their captors, make a good deal with life in an economy where the deal is increasingly exploitative, bad, and compromising. Those that have pride towards this deal hide in their marriages, hide in their jobs, and hide in their fear of expression. This initial impulse took root at a time where I was working over 40 hours a week with a 1.5-hour commute. I didn't have time to share about these things so actively. My only goal was to pay off credit cards. But at the end of this period, I performed in Ypsilanti, a Totally Awesome Fest. This was last year. Last year was like a really important Totally Awesome Fest for me. It was like a psychosomatic, like redemptive feeling that we can have like a lot of embodied care, but Stuart gave me like mushrooms before my set last year, and I was like, if I take them at the beginning, I probably won't feel like I'm tripping until after. But I was kind of coming up during my whole set last year, and at the end, last year, every time I tried to perform, I had so much like pent-up experiences that I couldn't resist saying very uncontrolled expressions of like basically some kind of pain. And at Ypsilanti's Totally Awesome Fest last year, at the end of my set, I just kept on saying, "We aren't supposed to live like this. We aren't supposed to live like this. We aren't supposed to live like this." And like, I was like, that was huge for me. It was so huge. And so that was like the beginning of like this next period after that, like where I actually was like, oh yeah, like I believe that 100,000 million jillion %. Shattered the illusions. And now I'm just vibing, y'all. It's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, I don't know. I have like, this is literally 120 pages of just like fragments.
Yeah.
I don't know, how are we doing on time? I've like totally lost track.
It's like 4:30. You're 10.
All right. I also like, are people trying to mingle and chill?
I just want to listen.
If you want to just keep going. Okay, I just like,
Talking.
I'm for real. Like, I'm not trying to like just like hold you captive with my journal, but.
Talking.
Let's do poems. I feel like we got like a little. I'm so fucking addicted to reality, y'all. Let me just say, and it has not helped me become healthier. That's one thing I'll tell you about the reality clowns, is that this project might provide clarity, but it might not provide comfort.
Woo.
Our timeline right now, I think it's hard for everyone to dial in their levels of like routine and standardization in the face of like, you know, exponential loss, fear, and, you know, just the blasting of like any structure that connects us. So, you know, yeah, I feel like being addicted to reality right now is something that I feel cosmically drawn to. But I'm just not gonna guarantee it's gonna be the path to like predictable years might be the thing. I've been thinking lately about that, how everyone says the terms like change is everything, and how when everyone says that, they literally mean something entirely different. Like if someone says change is everything, they could mean that they might die tomorrow. Or someone might say change is everything and they're like, my garden looks different 2 years in a row. Or someone might be change is everything and they're like, my pension plan like shifted and like I'm gonna like get like 3,200 instead of 3,800. You know, it's like everyone says that, and I've heard a lot of people imply it as if I would know what that meant. But reality clowns changes something. It's something, and like, yeah, we all have to like manage our time scales, like our 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day survival loops, our 1 month survival loops, our 6 month survival loops, our 1 year, 5 year, or 10 year. It's for some people, like, you know, there might be this promise of a home, and for a lot of people, you might only have a promise of your body, you might only have a promise of your mind, you might only have a promise of your survival instinct, you might only have a promise of your cycle. Living with your instincts is obviously mandatory, so don't hide from them. Wow, that was the most like didactic reality clowns things like ever. Okay. So yeah, one time I was like, you ever see like interesting like napkins in cups? Like they'll go get like really cheap napkins in cups, but they're like randomly psychedelic. Like the pattern will be like a spiral of dots or like really spirally. This is about just like seeing one of those. The airplane light makes my rings do lens flares. Everyone is lighting their living rooms with LED circles. The light gropes everyone. Why would you want every cell to be touched? A cup of ice with the spiral plastic motifs, like those occasionally lace pattern napkins from some supplier. On the second plastic cup of ice, I rotate them against each other. It's an unscrew motif, like my every other gem ring. When you rotate, you're flashing frames to the next world so you can do magic. Unscrewing it from your ring finger like you're turning back time, rolling it on the table like it presses money. Flipping through pages of manufactured consent, I realize my hands are beautiful. The ring is the last shred of a blood color. Cool. Alright. So, just gonna look through here real quick. This is all chronological. It's like poems and stories like 2021 through 2023. It's been, I don't know, have y'all been up to much the last couple of years?
Existing.
Surviving.
Yeah, what have people been getting like flooded with? Like, does it be flooding out, you know? Right? Especially in Ipsy. This is such a wet town. Like, it's always so soaking over here.
Soaking wet.
Oh God. Okay. I wrote like 8 poems in 2021, but these are like peak histrionic. They're all, again, the same thing in different ways. Oh God. Oh God. Yeah, a lot of these are about like wanting to save songwriters by having sex with them. Doesn't really work that way though, so that was kind of some like weird like matriarcha stuff. I feel like I have like more like funny stories too, like it's all out here. Just like trying to get triggered by something here. Oh yeah, I forgot to define generative adversarial networks. This is really important. This is like level 22, 222222, reality clown stuff. So I don't like artificial intelligence. What I learned about it working for someone who loved it this year was that artificial intelligence is mostly appealing to very wealthy people because it imagines like a history without guilt. like images with no context. Does that make sense? So, yeah, like, I mean, and I was forced into a position where I needed to understand it a lot better this year, so I could understand, like, if I was interacting with people who were using it in projects, like what's going on. And so I learned a lot about how it works, and I think it's worth talking about it. I think this stuff is disgusting. I wish I didn't know, and I don't necessarily even want you to know, but I think the idea of a generative adversarial network is important to know. So artificial intelligence works using this thing called generative adversarial networks. And if you think about those words, they're really scary. The idea of generated adversaries and kind of like the automated like hatred of yourself is very encoded into this because, you know, technocrats, I'm gonna say, like, I don't like, I think of nerds as like a word to describe something I don't like. I know a lot of people I know are hyper fixated on things, and I think that that is cool. But we are in a time where, like, the robber barons of our time, like, are nerds. Like, they're like trying to, you know, like they are in the elegant craft of making you doubt yourself, and that, like, gives them pleasure in lieu of their own embodiment. Like, it makes a lot of sense why every technocrat truly hates their body. They'll get obsessed with a lot of blood transfusions, and they'll get obsessed with, like, all this training, or, like, they'll get obsessed with trans people. And yeah, there's, like, a history of this. And they created this technology called generative adversarial networks. So the way artificial intelligence works is that there's a generative adversarial network in which there is a forger and a detector. So artificial intelligence tries to prove its reality. It's a total poser that is trying to be the thing that's being described. And every pixel gets audited from the forger by the detector. So it's like, make Mona Lisa. And so it'll check every pixel and be like, does that seem like a Mona Lisa-like pixel? The forger will generate it, and the detector will be like, yes or no. And it will scale up the amount of pixels that it will do that with on each round. So it's like greater chunks of detected simulation of history, or detected simulation of a prompt or a description. So yeah, that's what's happening in there, and a lot of when we're being, like, recorded, documented, when you're doing a CAPTCHA to, like, do, like, the two-factor authentication, everything, like, you are training this thing to pretend to be you, and to pretend to perceive like you. And it's just sad to me because, like, I really do believe in, like, a revolution of the senses. Like, I love everyone's eyes, and I love everyone's ears, and I love the way that everyone, like, sees and hears. And yeah, it's just really important that we have, like, almost a spiritual practice of, like, understanding that, you know, these things are gonna try to make us think that we are mimicking them because they're trying to flip us into our own generative adversarial network of imposter syndrome that, like, needs brands to fool the detector and become the real thing, or needs these intermediaries. And you all already know this, like, it's not, like, new information, but I do just want to, like, affirm that it's not that chill. Okay, so this is from the Saving Songwriters series. It's called Prayer for a Night in Which You Don't Need to Come or Get High. This is a little prayer you can say if you need to center yourself to go to sleep without coming or getting high. In order to sleep, repeat, tonight, I don't need to masturbate or smoke a bunch of weed in order to go to sleep.
God.
My life is fulfilling. I'm so enough. Without smoking my bong, without sticking my fingers inside, without using the 3-day-old carrot I was given at the pantry, like I was considering earlier in the evening. All I want to do is not masturbate, but write poems about being horny. I don't want to fuck myself tonight. There's an intention I'm having to stop fucking myself every night, to stop being high all the time. These things make me lose my edge on being really smart. Possibly, I'm even going to stop writing this now that I'm not thinking about fucking myself or getting high. And on this principled, sober night, I close my eyes and see Elliott Smith. I put on the ballad of Big Nothing and lay the phone down on my face like it's 100,000 pounds and I can't move. Like the weight of his body is holding me down, his painful looking face breathing on me. After the song is over, I'm awake and he's still breathing very heavily. I masturbate him to calm him down, and he comes on my stomach still laying on me. I want him to feel joy in this life, some relief.
No!
Elliott Smith, what I do love him. Okay. I really love him. Okay, this is number 2. I love him. Me and Elliott Smith have a totally chill relationship. As everyone who has a listening dynamic with Elliott Smith has a totally chill relationship with him, I'm sure. I'm sure it's so chill. Okay, this is number 2. Recording Just Like You. I'm outside of McDonald's with some palm trees